What's up, guys? We are doing a follow-up video to our Demun Tri-Strike short. We're going to do a full-length video now going over kind of the pros and cons, essentially the potential of it, and comparing it to a standard 185-pound crossbow. This one is only 50 pounds, and I think it kind of falls into more of a plinking class than it does into an actual hunting crossbow, obviously, based on the difference in FPS. This one is shooting at 150 FPS, this one is shooting at 380. So we're going to kind of go over penetration, the quickness of being able to cycle your next round, or in this case load your next bolt, and kind of go from there. Okay, so first up we are at 15 yards, and we're just going to kind of confirm our zeros on both of them so we don't go losing bolts, and kind of talk about some of the features that the Demun has at the same time. So this does feature a very cool mechanism that allows you to actually use the integral magazine here to put 3 bolts in, and then you break like so, chambering, or I guess aligning that first bolt there. Like a traditional crossbow, it does default to safe, so you have to switch that off, and you are ready to fire. And then instead of taking another bolt, placing it in the track, you can simply just rack that again for your full 3 rounds in the mag. Again, safety defaults. Sometimes it doesn't default to safety. I haven't been able to find out why. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that grouping, because some of these being it's pretty much just plastic bolt, they do flex a little bit, and if they're bent at all, they'll kind of throw off course, which isn't ideal, I would say. But let's check out that grouping and see what the penetration looks like at 15 yards. Okay, so these first two were pretty close. I was kind of aiming center bag here. This one was my first shot, this was my second, and then I watched this one kind of come out and do some weird flexing as it went in. Penetration on these guys onto a standard archery bag is what, 2.5 inches?
Yeah, 2.5, 3 inches.
Not too shabby. That is pretty consistent across the board, I've found. That one's
I've been told that's pretty average.
Yeah, exactly. This one came out weird, so you did get less penetration on that one. We're going to switch to the Centerpoint now at 380 FPS and see what the difference in penetration looks like.
I think it'll be substantial.
Substantial. Okay, so being a significantly heavier draw weight on this guy at 185 pounds, you do require a rope cocker or exceptionally strong back muscles to rack this fella, which is a win for the Demun for sure. We are going to load this guy with just a standard field tip. And same thing, we're going to go for the center of the bag at 15 yards. And then we're going to rack this guy again just to see the difference in speed on essentially chambering that next bolt. And we are ready to fire again. Same thing, I'm going to aim at the same spot. Let's go check it out. Okay, so with the Centerpoint, you're going to see a lot tighter grouping here. That's like about 1 inch of group there out of the 2. We probably should throw another one in there, but we're going to roll with 2. The first shot actually buried. This is a pretty hit target, so
that said, we do have 2 targets. We have a block behind, so It is buried in both.
But this guy has significantly more than 2.5 inches. This is kind of, you know, the guy that she tells you not to worry about.
Yeah.
And this one, which is a little bit more traditional, is still substantially more penetration.
I mean,
so,
that's what, 12, 14 inches?
Yeah, so that is going to be able to take down a deer, whereas the other one, even with a well-placed shot with a lack of penetration, would not recommend.
Not a humane way to go, I would say.
No, if it would even make it happen in the first place. Moving on. Okay, so when you first purchase this guy, it comes in a box with your rear iron sight installed, which is a fiber optic style. You have a green rear and red fronts, and those are very easy to pick up. We kind of just threw the EOTech on here just because it does have an optic rail and it seems to kind of fit this fella. You do get a cool mechanical advantage when racking. This is a 50-pound draw weight, but when you go to rack it, it kind of places your hand very close to harm's way there. The bolt is right here, it's coming right out of this track, and your hands are very close. If you were to grab it like this, for example, and attempt to break it, you are very much in harm's way. But if you use this little guard here on the bottom where you place your thumb and stay down here, that 50-pound draw weight is very easy to break back versus just pulling that string back there. It does not come assembled when you purchase it. The arms and string and main, they call it a stock, but I guess like the main components, the chassis of it, are all separate. When you install it, it is a little bit tricky. There's actually a couple weird parts. There's a limb pressure plate right here that you actually have to install with this front screw here. And the first time we did it, we followed the directions, which are pretty poorly written. Ended up having the entire arms backwards, felt like dummies, but we're able to rectify that and get it, you know, actual functional. You do have to string it, which they do include a cool, they call it like a helper string that is just like an actual piece of paracord almost. You rack it with that first, install the spring with the arms back, and then when you fire, it actually like gets rid of that helping string. All in all, pretty cool package. Again, it is kind of based on what you're planning to use it for. If you just want something to go back and kind of get some time shooting at a bag or a deer-sized target, more just for the fun of it, you can absolutely do that with this thing. Though I would not recommend using this for anything larger than chipmunks or squirrels, and even then, questionable on its reliability of hitting said target. But with 2.5 inches of penetration, it will do the job if you are able to hit a lethal shot. It's just a matter of morality, I guess, at that point. As far as optional accessories for this guy, or I guess the opportunities they present for them, there is a retractable string that if you take out this screw here, you are able to remove this back plate, and it kind of feeds in there on almost like a reel and allows you to clip it to a vest or backpack like this, and allows you to retract and kind of use it. That is pretty cool. As well as a hip-mounted quiver that Barnett sells separately. It does have this Picatinny rail segment on the bottom. For a minute, I thought maybe that was to attach a quiver onto the actual bow, but I believe it's actually for a bipod for stabilized shooting. I saw a couple of videos on this similar style of crossbow, and they often use those for kind of benchtop grouping tests. Interesting addition, but it's cool that it's there.
I would almost argue that that crossbow doesn't group well enough for that.
I would agree with that for sure, and I think maybe through some break-in period, as well as making sure that these bolts are straight every time it's fired, that will kind of improve that grouping, but still questionable on what it's capable of. It does have this nice fold-down foregrip, which is nice for either kind of a standard foregrip grip, or it does fold down for more of a traditional crossbow grip. The grip texture on both the pistol grip here and the foregrip are really nice, actually, kind of a rubberized and textured material. And this is kind of meant to be fired as a cheek pistol versus a shoulder. You'd have to really get in tight to shoulder this thing, but it is very comfortable to shoot from the cheek like this, or even more of a standard weird pistol shot Van Helsing style. So that is an option. Okay, so we are now at 40 yards. We're kind of stepping back a little bit. I don't think this is going to have much issue at this range, but I think you will see kind of the power loss of the Demon at this point. So we are going to safety off, and same thing, we are going to aim at the center of the bag. Beautiful center shot, really no drop at that 40 yards. Now let's transition over to the Demon. and we're going to attempt this one. I am going to aim high for this shot, just because I have kind of attempted the longer range shots with this, and it is fully dependent on the straightness of the bolt.
And these are the original 5 bolts that it shipped with, so they've been shot a bit.
Okay, shot 1. I aimed quite a bit high, and it actually didn't even make it to the bag. I'm going to aim even higher. That one did get the distance, but got a little squirrely due to inconsistencies in the bolt. Last shot. And we have impact.
At the very lowest portion of the bag.
Let's go see what that looks like as far as penetration loss at that distance. Okay, so with the Centerpoint, we had no loss in penetration, able to bury that whole bolt all the way up to the fletchings. And more or less center shot, I was aiming about here. So at 40 yards, really no difference in drop, but there was a skosh of kind of windage effect there. Could have been in the scope, could have been actual wind. This guy hit very low, but was able to penetrate, and actually not so bad for 40 yards out of what this is. So I mean, you still got that 2 inches of penetration. I would have liked to see that not drop, you know, 10 inches, but it was capable of going that far, I suppose.
Yeah, but the penetration doesn't really matter much if you can't actually hit the target.
That is very true. If you were to take a couple shots at that range and do your best to zero for it, you wouldn't have to aim that high.
And if they're important shots, I would almost recommend buying new bolts and using them as a one-time use sort of thing.
That's very true. These do kind of, regardless of what they're going into, it kind of strips off this, it's not even really a finish, but this material itself. The fins are very rigid. I don't see those bending, but they could break if they hit something hard. And again, the flexiness of these guys really plays into effect as far as how that travels through the air versus a very rigid platform. So, something to note. So all in all, I think the Demun Tri-Strike is worth its price point of $100. You do get a lot out of that package, the 5 bolts and the very cool mechanism here, which I really hope to see in further Barnett productions if they were able to kind of fine-tune this mechanism and add a much higher draw weight. I think that would be a very cool addition to kind of the market of hunting crossbows. I know I personally have been in a tree stand with this one, had to rack the crossbow and fire again, and doing that with no assistance. I didn't even have the ropes or anything, so doing that and throwing out the back, significantly more difficult than simply break action chambering.
Yeah, I agree with that, because as this sits, outside of being like a range toy or a planker, I don't see a lot of practical use out of something this size.
Definitely not a hunting platform, no. I would say.
No, very much not. It's closer, it's not a toy. I would say you can definitely...
I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of it, I can tell you that. But
you can definitely ruin someone's day with that thing, but it sits in kind of a middle spot where it doesn't have a lot of practical use. But like you said, it does come from Barnett. Barnett is a kind of reputable?
Pretty reputable, yeah. I mean, they've been around a long time. They've had a couple really good options, and they've had some that we've seen have some issues.
Yeah, the DRT series in specific.
Those ones, a lot of the times the limbs would actually snap. We had a lot of people that were talking to us about their limbs breaking when they went to take the shot.
I think the most common one was the front of the limbs would start to delaminate.
Yep,
and,
exactly.
You could see the layers coming apart.
Yeah, that's scary. You don't want that to happen. But
that said, I agree with you. I think it would be really cool if this kind of magazine-fed mechanism, the repeating mechanism, was in a larger crossbow.
Which there is the BAT, which is a much higher FPS and a much higher price point, but that one is kind of hitting the market now as well, and supposedly is capable of taking deer. And in not a much bigger platform than this, heavier for sure, and again, much more expensive. But that would be a very cool addition to the market, like I said.
If you'd like to see one like that, like, subscribe, and share the video so maybe someday we can afford it.
That would be excellent. And as far as this guy sitting in, you know, what niche it's in, I really kind of wanted to check it out myself, because there's a lot of people that can't buy guns that want to be able to protect themselves. And as horrible of an option as it is an option for those limited to that.
It's better than a stick.
It's better than a stick.
Or your bare hands, I would say, but Significantly, I think even cheaper options would be better. Pepper spray.
Pepper spray really
would
does
be
win
a
as a
more-
personal protection for that, but if you do want to, you know, clear your house.
Yeah.
This exists, so that is something to kind of consider because that is a large demographic of people that, you know, still do want to be able to protect themselves.
Buy a black powder revolver.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
a blowgun maybe.
Knife.
Big rock.
Big rock, I would say.
Cool.